Hey everyone, welcome to Past Lives and the Divine. I'm Gina, and this is the podcast where we talk all about just that, past lives and the divine. We're kind of in that divine category today, talking about astrology and self-care. We do this once a month. We've done it since January, so if you enjoy this episode and you're new here, definitely go back through the episode list to other astrology and self-care episodes. In these episodes, as you probably already know, we welcome Meredith McCowan from Earthling Astrology and Ashley Sondergaard, the host of the Yoga Magic podcast. They're both coming in today, sharing their wisdom on self-care, sharing their wisdom on the different energies. So our focus in this episode is that Cancer energy. So June 21st is when the Cancer season begins, roughly. And so Meredith and Ashley and I are just chatting about how to make the most of this time, how to make the most of this energy in our birth chart. And we also talk a little bit about, I don't have any planets in Cancer, and I don't think Meredith does either. And so we also talk about what happens when there's a sign and you don't have any planets in it, because I think we all have that. And then how to kind of still see how that energy shows up in your life, even though there are no planets in there. So we talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, if you want to learn about that Cancer energy, how it shows up for you, what it might feel like, what it might look like, this will be a good episode for you. So before we dive in today, I want to tell you about the new hypnosis track in the shop on my website. The track is called Boundaries with Ease, and I created it inspired by this episode because Meredith and Ashley and I talk a little bit about boundaries, things I've been thinking about recently, and for anyone who has a lot of Cancer energy in their birth chart, boundaries are even more important for you. But let's be real, we all need boundaries. So I created this hypnotic track so you can just kick back, listen to it, and slowly become easier and easier for you to set some boundaries. So you can go to pastlivesandthedivine.com/shop or just click on shop on the homepage and you can see all of these hypnotic tracks in the shop. I have coupon codes, I have, and then of course, coupon codes, but of course, if you're on my email list, every time I release one of these, then the weekend that I release it or the weekend after I release it, everybody on my email list gets a discount code for that hypnotic track. So again, head over to pastlivesandthedivine.com/subscribe. Make sure you're on that email list to be the first to be able to register for events, which often sell out, thankfully. And you can get on that email list and just be notified of the different things going on, episodes coming out, all of that. Okay, if you get to the end of this episode and you're like, whoa, that was great, I want to know more, know that you can go to the show notes of this episode and you can click on Ashley's links and you can click on Meredith's links. And if you're wondering about a past life session or a life between lives session or a spirit guide session, head over to pastlivesandthedivine.com. You can click on the Work With Me tab to learn about the types of sessions and to schedule your session. I am still doing, and as far as I can tell into the future, will always do virtual sessions. So it doesn't matter where you are, as long as you have an internet connection, we can do a session together. Okay, are you ready? Gather around the fire for my conversation with Meredith and Ashley about that Cancer energy. All right, everybody, welcome to this astrology and self-care episode. As always, I have Ashley Sondergaard and Meredith McCowan, both here. Ashley's podcast is the Yoga Magic podcast, and Meredith's company is Earthling Astrology. So all of you have met them many times before, and these are always like one of my most downloaded episodes of the month, if not the most downloaded. So everyone knows who you are, but just in case this is someone's first episode, tell us, Ashley, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ashley Sondergaard. I'm the host of the podcast Yoga Magic, where we talk about self-care and self-discovery every week lots of experts from my own trials and errors. And then I'm a self-care coach, a yoga teacher. I've been teaching backyard yoga like it's my job this summer, talking about all of the weird astrology. Sometimes people are there for it, sometimes they're not, but that's who I am. And I'm so glad to be on the show again.
As a washed up group exercise instructor, it was always so conflicting when I would have a class and like no one would show. On one end, I'd be like, oh, and then on another end, I'd be like, yes, I'm going home.
I get it.
I totally feel that. Although they're super fun outside, it sort of feels like a treat. I mean, to be outside in the grass and just
I was going to ask you if you're doing those. I'm going to come to a few when I can.
Yes, come.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Meredith, okay, so yes, Meredith McCowan. I own Earthling Astrology in St. Paul, Minnesota. I do astrology readings. I do crystal healing, crystal packages, and I also work 2 days a week with a psychic medium. We read together, who happens to be a Cancer, which is today's topic. So that's a little bit about me. But yes, I think this is my 4th or 5th or 6th episode. And happy to be here with you, Gina, for having me again.
Yes. Well, thank you both for coming back. As you all know, we try to keep these episodes timeless. Like, how can you use this energy? What does it mean if your sun is in Cancer, moon, rising, all of those things to kind of look out for. But after this conversation about Cancer, we're going to talk a little bit about the eclipse coming this week. So when this episode actually comes out, the eclipse will be in our rearview mirror, but we're going to talk a little bit about it. Yeah, we all can't wait.
Moving through this one.
But whether you get the information about the eclipse like during it or after it, I just love how astrology is like, here's why you feel crazy, Gina. And it's like, okay, thank God it's not me. Not just me.
Not just you. No, bonkers.
Yeah. Meredith, start us off. Tell us everything you think we should know about this sign, Cancer.
I will. And I'm going to be asking Ashley, our Cancer, today, most of my questions. Yeah. So we do have a Cancer on the episode. And I have to just tell a story first before I start talking about Cancer. And I think I said this about Aries when we did the Aries episode. Like, Aries is tough for me because it's not like textbook. And Cancer is tough for me because I am literally scared of Cancer. And it doesn't make any sense, but I want to explain. Not really scared, but I have to proceed cautiously because it's a sign that's so foreign to me. I am the opposite sign of Cancer, which is Capricorn. So it's a duality, it's a polarity for myself. But let me tell you a little story. It's a true story. When I started my business, actually, before I started my business, I was doing free readings for about a year. So I asked 10 friends to ask 10 of their friends that I didn't know, just so I could get experience, do free readings. And in that year, I did like these astrology parties. I would go to people's houses and then just do free readings for everybody there. And every single party, if there was a Cancer that was supposed to come, would bail or would cancel. And the first 6 months or maybe even longer of my professional practice, after I started charging, I never got any Cancers. And if I did, they would cancel. So I started to get a complex about like, what is it? And now I've kind of moved through the energy and kind of assimilated what was going on. And I'm grateful that that happened because I am a Capricorn, which is kind of all business and not super famous for emotional resonance. So I had to actually learn how to navigate those emotional waters and change my language, change my speech, and not just be kind of like, pull up your bootstraps, like, kind of Capricorn mentality. So now I work with 2 Cancers. One of them is on this pod, Ashley. And then again, I mentioned earlier, I work with a psychic medium who is a Cancer. So I've made friends with Cancer, but it was a struggle. And maybe people listening know that there's an opposite sign of yours. You might struggle with that opposite sign like I did. And I think I've mentioned the opposite sign. Maybe I haven't on every pod, but know that there's a polar opposite sign of you out there, and Cancer is mine. So I had to share that little tidbit because I was like seriously getting a complex about it. And I can't make that stuff up. Like, it was like, I would like look at the party, who was coming, and I had all the birth info, and it was the Cancers that didn't show up.
Wow.
So kind of funny how that worked out. But now I'm friends with literally friends with Cancers. So yeah, just a little tidbit about that. Okay, so I will talk about Cancer today. It is the fourth sign of the zodiac. It is a water sign. So again, this is an empath, one of the empaths of the zodiac. And Cancer is a cardinal sign, starts around June 21st every year, which is the start of summer. So cardinal signs are more active, kind of like initiators of the zodiac. And mother energy is Cancer. This is home and family, that nurturing element to the water, the caregiving element to the water signs. And whether Cancers, male or female, have children or not, they end up mothering somebody, whether it's their siblings, their animals, their parents, their friends. Cancer is a sign. It's like, do you need water? Do you need food? Like always trying to like nurture everybody and take care of everybody. And I'm excited to talk to Ashley about self-care because I think Cancer is one of the signs that struggles the most with self-care because they're taking care of all the kids, all the family, everybody. It's just how they're wired, for sure.
Very poetically cosmetic that you're a Cancer and self-care is your job.
Yes, right? So good.
I like literally learned by trial and error, like I said, story of my life, just like needed to get to
It's
rock
perfect.
bottom. Yeah, it is.
And I think I mentioned before that every sign of the zodiac is ruled by a planet. And the planet, well, it's a planet in astrology that rules Cancer, is the moon. The moon is considered a planet in astrology, and Cancers are very connected to the lunar energies. They will find their moods can change with the moon. So if you are a Cancer and you're listening, download a moon app on your phone just so you can track the cycles and notice if you feel different during the new moon, the full moon. Look up the phase of the moon at your birth. See if you feel differently around that moon phase because the moon is so tied to the Cancer energy. Of course, the Cancer is represented by the crab. And, you know, crabs have a shell, right? But they're soft and mushy inside. And there's two kind of spectrums of Cancer. There's the Cancers that like wear their heart on their sleeve, you know, crying at everything. And there's some Cancers that, you know, that crab shell is really made out of titanium. They're really, you know, they may not show emotion, but they're feeling everything. And I'm still working on my theory of like, if I can predict what kind of Cancer is, like what kind of Cancer I'm going to meet when they walk into my office, whether their crab shell is made out of paper or if it's titanium. But yeah, all Cancers have a wall up usually because they're so sensitive. They might proceed cautiously at parties or not really show their true self until they're super, super, super comfortable around other people. What I want a little tidbit about Cancer is they are the sign that suffers from FOMO the worst. And I don't suffer from this. I don't know, Ashley. So FOMO is fear of missing out. Do you have that a little bit? Like if you don't get invited to a party, do you get sad? I mean, you got that Capricorn energy.
Yeah,
so.
I worked through this, but I like very much, we'll talk about like victim mentality a little bit, but I think it kind of lands in this area. Yes.
And the FOMO
I used to call it JOMO, like the joy of missing out, because I'm such an asshole like that.
I'm gonna steal
like,
that.
FOMO, I'm unfamiliar. JOMO, yes. Like I have had groups of 3 female friends professionally, like different groups, you know, just like, especially like my wellness people, obviously I'm not working with them anymore. But it's really just like, I love it when the other 2 hang out together without me. I love hanging out with them, but I love it when the other 2, it's like I get just as much joy out of that. So I call it JOMO. So you take that, Meredith.
I love that because, you know, Gina, I looked at your chart and you don't really have any Cancer energy like myself. So I'm going to steal the JOMO. But Cancers, I think it's because they feel they need to be needed. They like to be needed. And maybe if you know there's a group of friends and they don't get invited to a party, they'll get bent out of shape about that. I'm really sad because Cancers will usually include everyone unless they don't like the person or they don't resonate with the person. But yeah, FOMO is what Cancers can suffer from. They struggle with boundaries. Again, they're nurturers and caregivers. So sometimes saying no to someone that you are responsible for, you know, caregiving is tough for Cancers. They do have that crab shell, but boundaries is really, really tough for this sign. And one thing about the crab, and this might be more of the shadow side of this sign. So think about a crab. They flail their arms like crazy and they walk sideways. And Cancers sometimes don't give it to you straight. They'll kind of do, and my mom is a Cancer, so I'll give you a like stupid example of this. If I would throw, a baby shower or something for a family member, my mom will say, "Your aunt thought you threw a great party." But my mom will never say, "I thought you threw a great party." Like it's hard. And I think it's because Cancers are so sensitive. If I have a critique or come back to them, it's like, that's why they don't necessarily give it to you straight. They won't necessarily lie, but you have to kind of figure out what they're saying. And I struggled with my mom with this when I was a kid, because I'm that Capricorn, like logic, like what's going on. And she would just not, give it like the straight. Again, it's not a lie. It's just you have to kind of roundabout answer. And the physical disease of Cancer, I think, does this too. If a horrible diagnosis, Cancer, the illness doesn't give it to you straight. It might be symbolic of something else that you suffered from. Again, this is not medical advice. I'm not a medical practitioner, but it's interesting if you start listening to looking in the body and where you get illness. Again, that's another thing about Cancers. They might not give it to you completely. You're like, what are you saying? You might have to ask a few questions to see what they're trying to say. Again, because they're such sweet, sensitive souls. They don't want to hurt your feelings, and they don't want to get their feelings hurt as well. One other thing, what I've noticed is Cancers, since they struggle with boundaries, I have counseled so many Cancers and then like parents of Cancers where they've just ghosted their family or just completely cut them off or exiled themselves. And I think it's because of that difficulty with boundaries. So the boundary is I'm moving across the country and never talking to you again. So that is, again, a little bit more of the shadow side of Cancer, and not always great about giving it to you straight. Well, hey, you hurt my feelings doing this thing. So again, I struggle with this sign, if you can't tell already, but I've been getting more, I've been falling more in love with the Cancer energy. And again, I don't have any of it in my chart, but I'm at the point where I want more. Because they're just such sweet souls and hard to get to know sometimes, but always have a huge heart in everyone's interest, in their mind.
So Meredith, first, thanks for sharing that. And then so if someone doesn't have, like, if I don't have, and you don't have like planets in Cancer, it still affects that house. So even if you don't have planets in it, you can be like, oh, given my rising sign, this is the house it was in, or something like that.
Right. So Gina, your Cancer energy is it's 9th house. So philosophy, ideas, you might be sensitive about sharing personal opinions with other certain people. If you don't want to get pounced on or attacked, you might be a little bit more sensitive there.
Yeah. You just put your finger on a big wound.
Ooh, sorry.
No,
I got goosebumps when you said that. So there's layers there.
Oh, but it is like, it's so interesting because like the most difficult people in my life are people who do not know me. Or I should say they think they know me because they're like family, but they do not know me because
right.
You remember my flavor of codependence is let me just keep you happy so I can get the fuck out of here.
Oh, you just said another keyword for Cancer is codependency.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a reciprocal sign. So Cancer is give and give and give, and they actually receive love by giving love. But again, they can get that bitterness or resentment if they don't feel like they're receiving it back. But the mother energy, if you care for an infant, infants are very, very loving when their needs are met. So Cancer actually receives love just by caregiving. But yeah, so Gina, with your, personal philosophies, maybe you have to like purple pill yourself with family members if they don't quite understand what you do for a living. You have to kind of have a foot in both worlds. And you might kind of just like put a wall up and not maybe talk about your personal philosophies, especially ones you're passionate about and emotionally attached to. You might just choose not to talk to certain people about them.
Yeah. Like to the point, if I have a new idea, I will not share it with anyone if I think there's even a risk that they're going to have something negative to say.
Really?
This is too precious for anyone to like tear down. But like when that idea takes root and turns into something and I'm doing it, then I'm like, I don't care who knows.
Gotcha. Yeah, you do have
so interesting.
You got an asteroid in Cancer. I have there's an asteroid I work with, and maybe I mentioned this on the pod before, named Juno, Juno. It's symbolic of spouse or partner. And I have Juno in Cancer. So I do have an asteroid in Cancer, and that's symbolic of my husband. And he actually is the nurturer. He cooks all the food. He really kind of cleans the house. He makes all of our bread, and he's super moody. So like he fits the bill for my Juno in Cancer. And he's very, very sensitive. He's very empathic. So it's kind of interesting how that plays out. And then
Oh my God.
Gina, you have an asteroid named Ceres, Ceres, in Cancer. And I have found this symbol to symbolize a mother-in-law or a mother figure that's not your mother. And there's other symbolism for Ceres, but yeah, maybe just kind of throw that out there, and you can think about if your mother-in-law has Cancer type traits.
Yeah, totally. She totally does.
Cool. All right.
Ashley, tell us how to take care of ourselves with this in mind.
Oh my gosh. I feel like Cancers, they're going to get a little extra judge only because I literally live this all day, every day.
Well,
and
they should
I just have all the things. I feel like you were speaking to me, Meredith, in all of this. And, you know, I don't know if you guys have felt this way, but I never really identified with my sun sign, with my Cancer energy as like a younger person. I don't know. I think I was like, I very much resonated more with that Capricorn energy. And as I've grown older and really figured out who I am, I'm like, oh yeah, total Cancer vibes. Mama bear. Like once I really actually became a mother, I really embraced that energy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And all of it, like as you were saying, it hits hard because of that sensitivity piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's a burden, but it's also a gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some real superpower to any sign. And when we can move out of the shadow into the light of these signs, it's real magic. And I think that's my journey, right? So some self-care tips for Cancer energy. First, yes, nurture people because that feels good, right? Like taking care of others is amazing. And you have to take care of yourself. There's just no possible way to take care of others if you don't take care of yourself.
Right.
I say it all the time. And, I discovered that the hard way, really through, once I had children and was breastfeeding and doing all, literally physically giving up my body, I became so depleted, so sad, so not myself, that I had to pull myself back out and couldn't really parent them appropriately without this. So I feel that on a visceral level, like remember to nurture yourself. And most of my clients, most of them, I would say like 60 to 70% of the people I work with either have Cancer, like sun, moon, or very much
really
a large dominance. Yes. Because of that very reason. We forget to take care of ourselves. But once you can, Cancer energies out there, once you do this, you tap into this deep well of magic. I mean, I think Cancers are very much an intuitive sign. Psychic energy across the board, like
For
a lot
sure.
of the other, the water signs. And like when you can move that cloud of almost like guilt in a way, like, oh, I need to take care of everybody else, just move that out. And I've done a session, I'll talk about that in a sec with Gina on this particular topic. But once you move that out of the way, you tap into these superpowers and you can make shit happen. You can manifest, you can tap into your intuitive gifts. It's so freeing. So when this was like maybe my second or third session with Gina, I wanted to overcome some mom guilt, which is something that a lot of other mothers might feel, or just anyone that has like kind of a low grade feeling of shoulds all the time. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And I wanted to move through mom guilt about spending how much time I should be spending with my kids versus work versus friends, blah, all of it. So we did, what I ended up seeing was this like physical manifestation of my guilt. And it was like a purple mist. It was really low to the ground and it was really heavy. And I would lift it up in this session. I would like kind of like raise it up and like move it out of my way. And now when I get into that space, I do the same thing. I come back to this like moving of the heavy mist, the guilt that sometimes weighs heavily on me. And that came out of a hypnosis session. I don't think I've told you that, Gina, but I use it all the time.
No,
that's awesome.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. Yes.
Good.
That makes me so happy.
And I
So,
think, can I just
sorry,
want
go
to say
ahead.
one thing about the
Mhm.
superpower that you mentioned? I meant to mention this earlier, but I feel like cancers, when they're using that intuition, that instinct, they want to protect their young, like that's how they're wired. And I see cancers like lifting off of like a bus off of a child. Like that's their superpower. Like they are so protective, and they, will lift, like throw a bus over a mountain, like even more than Aries. I think Cancer can like harness that power. So powerful, like the protective instinct when they're in the moment. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's so true. And I think, the shadow side of that is a bit overbearing, right? As a parent,
Mm-hmm.
you want to be that helicopter parent. And why I think self-care, I just did a post on this as I was anticipating this conversation. Why self-care can be so helpful in this area is that when we are disciplined with our habits, when we give time to ourselves, which is hard, it's not intuitive for Cancer energy, we aren't so inclined to control everything. We're able to release a little bit of control, let things go. And we can't control, the people that we love. There are other people. We can't do that. And so when you can take care of yourself first, you can really let some of that go and just be in the moment, be present. The next kind of like major arching theme that Cancer really can feel is emptying, like letting actual emotion move through completely. And this is, that hard shell is there for a reason. So my therapist taught me this. She's like, Ashley, but like when you cry, do you like cry a lot? Like, are you letting it go? And I'm like, I guess not, like fully empty. And for me, it's crying. For other people, it might be something like, working out and burning off extra energy or anger, or journaling and getting some of your shadow thoughts out. But this idea of like, let it rip, as one of my mentors says all the time, like feel okay with that full release. And that's vulnerable. That's a vulnerable state to be in. But when we're not harnessing that energy, we're not holding on to it. Again, we're able to really step into this light. So yeah, I love that visual of just like literally emptying all the emotions out. And then I think what comes right with all of this, with this like commitment to self-care, being disciplined, that emptying, we can really step into our intuitive gifts. So I'd empower the heck out of Cancers to work on that, to work on their intuition. I'm doing a course right now with a spiritual teacher who I really resonate with. Her name is Nikki Novo. And she's going to be on my show coming up in like a week or so. And she probably right as this is airing. And she has these really accessible courses on developing intuition. And I know you do this too, Meredith, right? You have courses or classes on intuition development.
Just one with Natalie, the psychic I work with.
Natalie.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
This I think is like prime for Cancer to use some of your energy and time to develop this. And right now I'm really focusing in on like tuning my own chakras and being able to just feel out which ones are out of alignment. And it takes practice. It takes some serious discipline, but it's been so fun to do this. And so that project, right? That like nurturing a project is such a great use of your day, Cancers, to get out there and like tap into your psychic gifts. The one thing that I'll say about the shadow side of Cancer and just like, all of this is the kind of the fun, like doing the self-care and doing all of the psychic work. But the shadow side is that sometimes Cancer energy can live, at least when I've seen it play out in this way, live in a little bit of victim mentality. And it's that I'm always doing things for other people, because you are. I mean, you really are. That giving. There's a tendency to live in the past. This happened to me. My parents did this to me, whatever it is. And that's real. I'm not denying anyone's traumas or the things that they have been dealt in this life. Yet, when we move out of it, when we release that feeling of being a victim and just say, okay, I'm ready to like take my life back. Let's fucking do this. That's when, all of the magic really starts to walk in. So I'm like, I love you, Cancers. I feel you. Don't feel bad about any of the like kind of heavy load sometimes that you're dealt, because you are unicorns, straight up unicorns.
Right. And so intuitive, and Cancers at some point in their life either had like a epiphany or an awareness of, wait, I'm feeling these emotions, but are they my emotions? Or did I soak them up from, the kids in my class or my kids or my parents? And that is not something we are taught, or maybe that's changing in school when we were little, about feelings and empathing other people's stuff. And cancers have to work at that. In my world, I'm always recommending psychic protection. And Ashley, I'm sure you do that too with crystals, visualization, yoga, meditation, whatever works for you. Because cancers every single day need to bubble up. Even in their own homes, just so connected to the earth energies and other people's energy fields. And that is a gift, but it is a gift that can get heavy if you're not clearing your field and protecting your own energy and identifying the emotions as yours or somebody else's. I feel like that would be tough.
I do salt baths. What do you guys do for your energetic cleansing?
Crystal charged water bottles. So I put clear quartz in my water. It's supposed to detox your cells, and the water we drink is just pissed because it's in pipes and probably chemicals in there. Yeah, so I throw clear quartz in all my drinking water and my pets' water too, and their dishes.
What was the question? To cleanse?
Gina, what do you do for like protection or for cleansing? Like before or after sessions, you have some rituals that you do, right? Just to kind of clear your own space and energy.
Yeah. I am getting lazier and lazier with this, but I think I'm just working smarter, not harder. So I used to do like a whole like sage and I'm not seeing people in my house, but I have some sage, but mostly like mugwort, lavender, stuff I've grown. So I always just spark that just enough to make the room smell like it. And every time I do it, I just like set the intention for the session and ask the clients spirit guides to be here and give the client, what they need. But personally for myself, I do a lot of like salt baths. I spend a lot of time outside. When I personally feel a lot of pleasure in looking at things that are beautiful, pleasure in eating things that I truly, truly am craving and really enjoy, even just really getting all five senses for pleasure's sake, not because it's productive, not because at the same time I can do this. Pleasure is a big part of it. It's like, like right now I have this and then I have a client later. And so this evening I'm going to be digging around under this huge pine tree that we have and like planting stuff. And I cannot wait to get out there. I don't know. I love moving my body. It's all kind of worked in there. It's like movement, but also the five senses, pleasure is in there. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. I've been using the water you gave me, Meredith, too.
I was going to say, so Ashley discovered Florida water. Gina, I don't know if you have. It's actually from Peru, even though it's called Florida water. And I use that between sessions. I use it on myself before a session and after, just to clear my energy field. And I'm usually covered in tiger eye crystal during my sessions. That's a good rock for psychic protection. So, for Cancer rocks, I recommend tiger eye and moonstone. Since you're tied to the moon, get some moonstone. Yeah, that's a good emotional equilibrium stone.
One other easy thing, self-care related for any signs, but I think Cancer, it's really fun to look at it, is to track your cycle if you do have a menstrual cycle against the moon and watch where they line up. If you bleed on a full moon versus a new moon, I don't know. It's just an interesting self-study because theoretically they line up in some way. They're about the same time. And yeah, it's just like a self-study that can tell you a lot about your energy, how high it is, how low it is, how you should be nurturing yourself at different times in the month.
I should also say Cancer energy, one of the most fertile signs of the zodiac. My joke is like Cancers can get knocked out by somebody looking at them across the room. So throw in an extra goalie if you're not trying to get preggo. Cancer moons especially. Cancer moons a little bit more than Cancer suns. Super fertile usually. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm glad I'm not a Cancer.
Can I ask a question about... Okay, so I'm a Cancer sun, Capricorn moon. Mm-hmm. For people that have full moon charts where their sun and moon are opposite, how does this manifest? What does that look like for people? Do they cancel each other out in a way?
I have, different language to describe this phenomenon. In evolutionary astrology, the theory is you've been repeating things for lifetimes and you chose to be born on a full moon to let go those repeating behaviors that don't serve you. But full moon babies, such as yourself, Ashley, always have a push-pull. And I think I've talked to you about this before, like your Capricorn moon is that thinking and your Cancer sun is the feeling. So how do you merge the thinking and the feeling parts of ourselves? And full moon people can always feel pulled in different directions and kind of have an angel devil on their shoulders sometimes. Depends on the signs, of course. But yeah, for Ashley, for you, this is your thinking and feeling parts of yourself. That is going to be tough to merge, like oil and water. How do you make them work together? Does that answer your question?
Wow.
Yeah, it does. And it can be, I mean, I think of it as like, it can be a real benefit to have sort of these almost like built in boundaries or like bookends, right? Like you have these two different ideas and two different polarities that are kind of keeping you somewhere along the middle, but it can also be really hard. Yeah, that helps a lot.
Here, Ashley, what I will give you an example of your chart specifically. So a lot of Cancers can have trouble putting their emotions on the shelf. Like they're just all feeling raw emotion, deep feelers. If they need to cry, they can't pretend that they're having a good day, if they have a lot of Cancer in the chart. But Ashley, with that Capricorn energy, you can put your emotions on the shelf for a little bit if you need to. You can go to your kids' event, you can be smiley and, happy, bubbly, even if you are feeling the feelings. So that Capricorn gives you a little bit of a buffer, be like, okay, I have shit to do. I can feel this in 3 or 4 hours when I get home, when I'm by myself, but not all Cancers have that at their disposal.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's cool. I had never thought about this before, like how other people might feel the full moon, but that's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Okay, so talking about boundaries and stuff like that, this is actually something I've been thinking about a lot in terms of like boundaries, but also not just boundaries, but like getting the support we need, whether it's getting the support we need to put up the boundary or put up the boundary, get the support you need so you can like actually do your life in a way that feels a little bit better or sustainable. But when you think of whether it's from like an astrological type of thing or whether it's a personal thing, what are your thoughts on boundaries, journey with boundaries, things you see with other people in boundaries? What are kind of your thoughts about boundaries and what that actually means? Because I think that when someone says, oh, you need better boundaries, we all go, okay, yeah, I know what that means. But like, do we though? But like, how do you put that in your life?
It's so hard.
Yeah,
it's
because
so hard.
A boundary is fucking super uncomfortable, which is why you need it. So it's almost like this really intense, acute thing that's incredibly uncomfortable. So you can not have to go through like more unsustainable things. I don't know. Yeah. So Meredith, you go.
Yeah, this is kind of going on in my life right now, and it's struggle. I'm a Capricorn, so I can say no. I can be like, I don't want to come to the party, and like I love you, but just I need my time. Or Capricorn is okay with setting boundaries, but the thing I struggle with is like when my boundaries and another person's boundaries, that's really like someone close to me, they don't align. So you actually have to I'm going through negotiations right now with people that I'm really close with, where it's pandemic stuff, so I don't want to get into that too much, but where we have completely different spectrums and we both have different boundaries, and like how do you still have a relationship? How do you navigate this difficult energy on earth at this time? And Cancers, I think, have trouble setting those boundaries because they hurt feelings. When you set boundaries, it's almost inevitable you're going to hurt somebody's feelings. Is it malicious? No, it's never malicious. Well, I mean, it shouldn't be malicious, but if you say no to someone and you don't go to their birthday party, that sucks. That someone might be sad, even though you don't want to make them sad. So yeah, boundaries is tough for everyone. Every single one of my clients, whether Libras struggle the most, Cancers struggle the most, Capricorns can rock it out, Aquarius can rock it out pretty well. But yeah, the water signs in Libra struggle with the word no. Really, and that can be a boundary, just saying no. But so many people just struggle with that word. It's a complete sentence. And Ashley, both of you, Libra and Cancer here, you can probably struggle the most. Just say, no, I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do it because I feel like you think I should. That's a shoulding yourself thing. So
yeah, I'm always really afraid to hurt people's feelings. But now I don't know what happened once. I don't know if it was like I turned 40 or if it was like a pandemic and,
Yeah.
but I just like, I am coming to a point in my life where I would have said I had pretty good boundaries before, but I'm upping that game. Like I am having less and less free time to myself and less free time to hang out with friends, which is okay. That's a balance right now that I'm doing with work. That's totally fine. I'm intentional about it. But it's the first time in my life where people who are incredibly toxic and incredibly draining to me, who are also family, right? So then once I put up that boundary and it really hurts someone's feelings, what I think is also hard about a boundary is like, so say this person in my family, I put up a boundary and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I just can't talk to you right now. Like the notifications from you are on mute. I've even blocked people for a period of time. But my thought is like, this boundary has to happen because I notice I have an interaction with this person and I legit suffer for 3 days. Like they annoy me so bad, my sex drive is through the floor. That's a problem for me. They just drain my energy. I just need to like go home and do nothing. If I do nothing, I want it to be because I'm doing nothing, not because I'm recovering from hanging out with someone. But the moment I put up that boundary, then other people who have to deal with that person now have to deal with that person's reaction to my boundary. That's where I get really uncomfortable because
Yeah, it's like the
I don't want to
domino
hurt anybody.
effect.
Yeah.
There's all these moving
Yeah.
parts. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. It's hard. It's so difficult. But again,
Yeah.
my answer to everything is like live with intention. You have no malicious intent.
Mm-hmm.
You're a loving person. You have to be loving to yourself. And if you just need to reiterate that to people, like I have no malicious intent. I have no intent to hurt your feelings. And you are also not responsible for other people's feelings. You're not
Mm-hmm.
responsible for how they respond to you, setting boundaries. And that's, again, a tough thing in these earthly spacesuits that we have to deal with.
Yeah. Ashley, how do you feel about boundaries? Like, what's
Mhm.
been your journey? How are you with them right now?
Yeah, I'm bad, real bad at them. But figuring them out as we go. And, as we're talking, I'm thinking about right now as the world is opening back up. We are so busy, like with our
Right.
like little kids sports and doctor's appointments and things like playing catch up, seeing family for the first time that we haven't seen, all these things. And this weekend I came home and I was in complete tears. Like I can't do this. I'm not ready for this. I overstepped boundaries. I let my guard down. And it was in those moments of real challenge, we're able to identify like, okay, take a step back. So when I'm looking at boundaries right now, it's the idea of like, what am I letting in? What am I letting in? And boundaries are a real communication of our self-worth to other people, to ourselves, to the universe, to God, all of this, right? And when we say it's okay to talk about your problems for 2 hours and not even ask me one question about me, that's totally okay with me. Then more of that shit comes into my life and it's not okay. It's not okay. And so recognizing just that moment of like, yeah, I'm overwhelmed. This is not good. I need to set up a boundary is the first step. And I'm still in it. And because I have people to protect, within my children and their energy is so absorbent, it gives me some motivation to be like, yep, nope, we need to have boundaries. So one really great example of this is like on Sundays, we just don't have anything planned. We have an open invitation to swim and hang outside. But other than that, we're not doing things. And it feels so good. We need that day. And this weekend, I overstepped that boundary. And that's when things got a little bit weird. So if you can, everybody, if boundaries is something you do struggle with, like look at those pain moments and kind of work backwards. I do love something that I call baby boundaries when you're with people or you're in a situation where you are, I think about like, say you're on a vacation with another couple or family that you like really do love, but like after a week, you're like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I'm spending too much time here. I don't have any boundaries. Find just like little moments of respite, whether for me, it's a salt bath, did that this weekend for sure. Or like literally like if you need to take some breath work in the bathroom, go for it. I got up really early before everyone got up this weekend so I could just journal and like, again, like kind of empty out, get that stuff going. So like take those moments for yourself, think of them as your baby boundaries until you can get back into some clarity and some space and say like, how could I maybe do this differently next time? Like what real full boundaries can I set up so I don't get overwhelmed?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. One of the things my guides have told me, like, don't try to work through and, release your anger. First, learn what you're angry about and why. That's a boundary. Then let it go. But I was just like, I don't want to feel like this. Let it go. And it was like, pay attention. So sometimes I think just what you're saying, Ashley, is like, yeah, all of these feelings, however we react, pretty soon we can start to see like, oh, I'm reacting this way because this is a boundary. And so like make a baby boundary for 5 minutes or, and then make a bigger boundary for next time. Thinking about boundaries and the pandemic, and I think a lot of us have a lot more boundaries as we're coming out of this quarantine. Like we're starting to see how yummy life was when we weren't running around like we're insane trying to check off as many things off the list as we can.
I think intuition, like you're saying, like that feeling plays a big role in it, right? Like if you are feeling icky about something, whatever it is, listen to that, like set that boundary for yourself. It's so easy to push something off, but like, heck yes.
Yeah. That has gotten a lot louder for me. I don't know if it's louder or courage or I don't know what. If I was just alone for so long, I'm just like, everybody can fuck off.
And maybe
of course I don't feel that way, but like it's just interesting to observe, like as the world or collectively we're all kind of being pushed to do what we were doing a year and a half ago. I think a lot of us are kind of like, oh, this is going to be a little period of
there's
like,
a re-entry.
Yes and no.
Re-entry period. And I was going to talk to you girls too. This is me and Natalie talk about this a lot. So I'm really good at personal boundaries, or I feel like I'm better at that than professional. So when you start, like I rarely have cancellations or people have that no-show. And I'm like, well, how many times do they no-show before I cut them off? Or do I push prepayment before I do a session, which people are really good about that normally, but it's hard for me with more professional stuff. I don't know if Ashley, you've come into this too, and it's very rare where I have a situation that's uncomfortable with a boundary with a client, like they didn't pay or they canceled 6 times. And I'm like, well, I've blocked 6 hours now on my calendar and you didn't show up. And I have to make a living. So that's where I struggle more, is the professional boundaries versus personal. And it's very compartmentalized for me.
Oh yeah, I've been fucked over so many times. It's like, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to pay. You're paying for it either way. Just pay for it before. And that's a direct result of all the assholes that came before you.
Yeah.
But actually, I don't know if I've ever had a no-show of a past life regression.
Right. If you sign up for that, you're going to be in unless you get cold feet. And even like if a client shows up 15 minutes late, which is not my fault, I always feel like I have to give them an extra 15 minutes. I'm like, no, that should be a boundary. They scheduled that hour. And if they are late, then I feel bad. I'm like, oh, it's traffic. That's where I struggle. Because I'll probably give them the extra time if I can, if I don't have another session right afterwards. But I struggle with that kind of stuff too. The timekeeping with the Capricorn, the time boundaries.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anything else on boundaries?
Nope. Keep practicing, everyone. It's work in progress.
It gets easier, but I feel like then you're just upping your game, and like the next boundaries, it's just expect it to be difficult, right?
Ashley, you always have good books. Have you found a good book on boundary setting? Like a professional psychologist or someone, maybe Brene Brown. She is pretty good at boundaries, like her talks. I haven't read any of her books, but she's a pretty good person if you guys are into her with boundary setting.
Her.
You know, not for boundaries, I'm thinking about Brene Brown, but she does have a tool that is really great, coming back to the Cancer energy, that I think people can use. She uses this idea of to ask yourself, or when let's say you're in like a conflict with a loved one, when you are resolving it, especially for a Cancer who sometimes isn't telling the whole story, because it's really vulnerable to do that, to say, the story I'm telling myself is, so I'll use an example. Like when, like my partner and I, if we ever get into like a situation, it's that I'm wanting him to like be totally dedicated to our family all the time, right? Like that's not realistic. So the story I'm telling myself is that you want to work more than you want to be with us. And he'll be like, that's not true. Totally not true. I'm so glad you told me that. That's not, you know what I mean? So this is a really clear way to communicate and to resolve conflicts. That's totally stolen from Brene Brown.
Nice.
Oh my God. I love that. I love
another great book.
Understanding the stories. Yeah.
Another great book, not really related to boundaries, but just self-care, that I think everyone should read, Every Single Sign. I just finished it. Maybe I talked about it on one of the future or last episode, but it's By the Fucking Lilies by Tara Schuster. And it's so good, you guys. It's just like so realistic. The journey of self-care for someone who had a shit ass childhood, like just this most amazing journey. And like the ending was like not even anything majorly profound, but I just like wept because it was true self-care in action. So everyone go read that ASAP.
And I'll link that in the show notes. Next time, Leo energy. I'm pretty excited about that
the
one.
only sign ruled by a star. So that'll be a fun one. And Leos they like to party. Be fun times. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. And then we'll also discuss a little bit about abundance too. So
yes.
Stay tuned for that. Thank you both.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
There it is. That is our episode for today. If you want more, head over to pastlivesandthedivine.com. Click on shop to see the latest hypnotic track. For this time, it's all about boundaries. And I called it Boundaries with Ease because boundaries are hard. I think they're hard for everybody on all sides of them. So head over to the shop if you want that and hop on the email list on my website if you want more information or discount codes on future hypnotic tracks. Regardless, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this conversation and just have an open mind and explore. And please forward this episode to anyone, maybe the Cancer in your life, maybe the people who have that strong Cancer energy, and you can forward it to them so they can kind of get their feet wet in all of this. I would really, really appreciate it. All right, until next time, take care.